The invitation. It all began with an innocent invitation. My old friend from college, Mark, had called out of the blue, inviting me to spend the weekend at his secluded cabin in the woods. Eager for a break from the hustle and bustle of city life, I eagerly accepted, despite some reservations about the isolated location. As I drove up the winding dirt road leading to the cabin, a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The dense forest loomed ominously on either side, and a thick fog obscured my vision. When I finally reached the cabin, Mark greeted me with a warm smile, but there was something off about him, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Brushing aside my concerns, I followed him inside, eager to relax and unwind. That first night, strange things began to happen. I heard footsteps echoing through the empty halls, and doors would slam shut of their own accord. Mark brushed off my concerns, chalking it up to the old age of the cabin. But as the days passed, the occurrences grew more frequent and more unsettling. I began to catch glimpses of shadowy figures moving in the corners of my vision, and a feeling of dread settled over me like a suffocating blanket. One evening, as I sat alone in the cabin, a knock sounded at the door. When I opened it, no one was there. But as I stepped outside to investigate, I caught sight of a figure disappearing into the forest. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. And when I returned to the cabin, I found a message scrawled in blood on the walls: "Leave this place, or suffer the consequences." As the days passed, the cabin became a prison, trapping me in a nightmare from which I could not escape. I began to lose track of time, my mind consumed by fear and paranoia. I tried to leave, but every time I ventured into the forest, I found myself turned around, lost in a maze of trees that seemed to shift and change before my eyes. In my desperation, I turned to Mark for help, but he only laughed, his eyes gleaming with madness. It was then that I realized the truth: Mark was not my friend, but something far more sinister, a puppet controlled by the darkness that lurked in the shadows. I was not alone in the cabin. There was something else there with us, something ancient and malevolent that hungered for my soul. With nowhere left to run, I resolved to confront the darkness head-on. Armed with nothing but my wits and a flickering flashlight, I ventured into the heart of the forest, determined to uncover the truth and put an end to the nightmare once and for all. But as I delved deeper into the woods, I realized that the darkness was not confined to the cabin. It stretched out like a web, ensnaring everything in its path. At the heart of the forest, I found the source of the darkness, a long-forgotten burial ground, its earth stained with the blood of countless sacrifices. And standing at its center was Mark, his eyes glowing with unearthly light. He revealed the truth to me: the cabin was built on cursed land, and I was chosen as the next victim in a never-ending cycle of death and despair. With the last of my strength, I fought against the darkness, refusing to be its puppet any longer. And in a blinding flash of light, the curse was broken, and the darkness was banished from the land. As I stumbled out of the forest, battered but alive, I knew that the nightmare was finally over. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still out there, waiting patiently for its next victim. As I drove away from the cabin for the last time, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the shadowy figures lurking in the darkness. But all I saw was the fading silhouette of the cabin, a reminder of the horrors that lay hidden in the depths of the woods. And as I left the cursed land behind me, I vowed never to return, knowing that some nightmares are best left forgotten. The Visitor's Curse. The night was heavy with the promise of rain when the stranger knocked on my door. His name was Jacob, and he claimed to have been stranded by a broken-down car. Despite the unease prickling at the back of my neck, I invited him inside, unaware of the darkness he would bring into my home. As Jacob settled into my home, his presence seemed to cast a shadow over everything. He was charming, but there was something off about him, something that made my skin crawl. Strange things began to happen. Objects moved when his back was turned, and whispers filled the air when no one was speaking. Nightmares plagued my sleep, visions of shadowy figures creeping through the darkness. I woke each morning exhausted and terrified, the line between dream and reality blurring more with each passing day. Jacob's smile grew more sinister, and I began to fear that I was not alone in my own home. In a moment of desperation, I delved into Jacob's past, only to discover a darkness far deeper than I could have imagined. He was not who he claimed to be, he was a creature of the night, bound to my home by a curse older than time itself. Now, I was trapped with him, with no way to escape the horrors that awaited me. As the days turned into weeks, my house became a prison of my own making. Every corner held a new terror, every shadow whispered secrets I dared not hear. I was tormented by visions of my demise, each one more vivid and terrifying than the last. With no other options left, I turned to forbidden rituals in a desperate attempt to break the curse that held me captive. Armed with ancient incantations and crumbling tomes of forbidden knowledge, I ventured into the depths of my madness, willing to risk everything for a chance at freedom. But the darkness was not so easily appeased. In exchange for my soul, it offered me a way out, a single chance to break the curse and reclaim my life. With no other choice, I accepted, knowing that the consequences of failure would be far worse than anything I could imagine. As the night of the ritual approached, the tension in the air grew thick with anticipation. I could feel the eyes of the shadows watching me, waiting for the moment when I would make my move. With the weight of centuries bearing down on me, I prepared to face my destiny head-on, knowing that only one of us would emerge victorious. In the final moments before the ritual began, I stood face to face with Jacob, my once friend now transformed into a monstrous abomination. With a flicker of defiance in my heart, I uttered the words of power, unleashing a torrent of magic that tore through the veil between worlds. As the dust settled and the echoes of the ritual faded away, I found myself alone once more, the curse broken and the shadows banished from my home. But as I surveyed the wreckage of my life, I couldn't help but wonder, had I truly escaped the darkness, or had I merely traded one nightmare for another? With Jacob gone, I thought the nightmare was over. But the shadows that had haunted my home refused to fade away. Strange noises echoed through the halls at night, and I caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye. One night, as I lay awake in bed, I heard a voice calling to me from the darkness. It whispered secrets I dared not hear, promising me power beyond my wildest dreams. But I knew better than to listen. The darkness had already taken too much from me. Just when I thought I was free, Jacob returned, his eyes burning with a hunger I could not comprehend. He offered me a choice, join him in eternal darkness or face a fate worse than death. But I refused to surrender to the darkness that had consumed him. As Jacob's power grew stronger, I knew that I had to confront him once and for all. Armed with the knowledge I had gained and the strength of my own will, I faced him in a battle that would decide the fate of my soul. In the final moments of our battle, I made a choice that would change everything. With a flicker of defiance in my heart, I offered myself as a sacrifice, willing to give up everything to break the curse that had plagued my home for so long. As the darkness closed in around me, I felt a surge of power, unlike anything I had ever experienced before. With a cry of triumph, I unleashed a torrent of magic that tore through the darkness, banishing it from my home once and for all. With the curse broken and the shadows banished, I emerged from the darkness a changed person. Though scars remained, I knew that I had triumphed over the darkness that had threatened to consume me. As I stepped out into the light of a new day, I knew that I had been given a second chance. With the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders, I set out to rebuild my life, determined to leave the darkness behind me once and for all. Though the darkness had been vanquished, its memory lingered on in the shadows of my mind. But I refused to let it define me. Instead, I embraced the light that had been given to me, determined to live my life to the fullest. As I looked back on the horrors I had faced, I knew that I had emerged stronger than before. Though the darkness would always be a part of me, I refused to let it control my destiny. With a sense of peace in my heart, I stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Whispers in the walls. The night was dark and stormy when the stranger knocked on my door. With a heavy heart, I opened it to find a man standing on my doorstep, his face hidden beneath the brim of his hat. He introduced himself as Lucas and begged for shelter from the relentless downpour. Against my better judgment, I let him in, unaware of the horrors that would soon unfold. From the moment Lucas crossed the threshold, an unsettling feeling settled over my home. His eyes were cold and calculating, and his smile sent shivers down my spine. Strange things began to happen, objects moved on their own, and I heard whispers in the dead of night. As days turned into weeks, I became increasingly suspicious of Lucas. I discovered old newspaper clippings hidden in his room, detailing a series of gruesome murders in the area. I realized too late that Lucas was not who he claimed to be. He was a fugitive, running from a past stained with blood. With each passing day, my house became a prison of my own making. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and I heard footsteps echoing through the halls when I knew I was alone. Lucas's presence grew more suffocating, and I feared for my safety with every breath I took. One fateful night, I stumbled upon an ancient tome hidden in the depths of my attic. It spoke of a curse that plagued my family for generations, a curse that would consume us all if left unchecked. I realized with a sinking heart that Lucas was the catalyst for the curse's awakening, and I was its next victim. Armed with newfound knowledge, I embarked on a journey to break the curse that held me captive. I sought out the help of a local witch, who guided me through a ritual of purification and protection. With trembling hands, I lit the candles and chanted the incantations, hoping against hope that it would be enough to save me. But the curse was not so easily defeated. As the ritual reached its climax, the walls of my house began to shake, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. Shadows converged on me from all sides, whispering dark secrets and promising unspeakable horrors. In the chaos of the ritual, Lucas's true nature was revealed. His skin peeled away to reveal a monstrous visage, his eyes glowing with unholy light. He laughed in triumph as he unleashed his dark power upon me, determined to drag me down into the depths of despair. With every fiber of my being, I fought against the darkness that threatened to consume me. I wielded the power of the ancient tome like a weapon, striking out at Lucas with all the strength I could muster. But for every blow I landed, he countered with 100 more, his laughter echoing in my ears like a death knell. In a moment of desperation, I made a pact with the darkness itself. I offered up my soul in exchange for the power to defeat Lucas and break the curse once and for all. With a flicker of recognition in his eyes, Lucas accepted, sealing our fate in blood and shadow. As the battle raged on, I felt the darkness closing in around me, threatening to swallow me whole. But I refused to give up. I would not let the curse claim me as its victim. With a final burst of energy, I unleashed the full force of my newfound power, striking down Lucas with a blast of pure, unadulterated magic. As Lucas lay defeated at my feet, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The curse had been broken, and my house was finally free from the grip of darkness. But as I looked around at the wreckage of my home, I knew that the battle was far from over. In the days that followed, I thought I had finally escaped the horrors that had plagued me for so long. But then, one by one, the shadows began to creep back into my life. I heard whispers in the wind and saw movement out of the corner of my eye, and I knew that the darkness had not been defeated so easily. Desperate for answers, I returned to the ancient tome in search of a solution. And there, hidden within its pages, I found the truth: the curse was not broken, only weakened. To truly banish the darkness, I would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. With a heavy heart, I prepared to face my destiny. I gathered my strength and called upon the power of the ancient tome, ready to do whatever it took to protect those I loved. With a final incantation, I unleashed a wave of magic that consumed me, erasing me from existence and banishing the curse once and for all. As the darkness faded away, I found myself standing in a world bathed in light. The curse was finally broken, and my house was at peace once more. But as I looked around at the beauty of my surroundings, I knew that my journey was far from over. Though I may be gone, my story lives on in the memories of those who knew me. My sacrifice will not be forgotten, and my spirit will forever watch over my home, ensuring that the darkness never returns. And though I may no longer walk among the living, I take solace in the knowledge that I have finally found peace. But even as I basked in the warmth of the afterlife, I knew that the darkness would always find a way to return. For evil never truly dies, it merely lies dormant, waiting for the right moment to strike. And so, my journey continues, as I stand guard against the shadows that threaten to engulf us all. To those who dare to read my tale, heed my words well. For though the darkness may seem distant now, it will always be lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for its chance to rise again. Do not be fooled by its promises of power and glory, for, in the end, only destruction awaits those who succumb to its seductive embrace. And so, I remain ever vigilant, a guardian of light in a world consumed by darkness. For though my body may be gone, my spirit lives on, ready to face whatever horrors may come my way. And as long as evil exists, I will be there to stand against it, a beacon of hope in the blackest of nights.